The day is finally here, and history will be made. Taking it to the next level, live from Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome to FE 2018 Canada, the first annual Flat Earth International Conference Canada 2018. Featuring Rob Skeeper, Patricia Steer, Mark Sargent, Bob Nodell, Jaron Campanella, Matt Long, Emmanuel Lakonga, Robbie Davidson, and your Master of Ceremonies, Rick Hammer. Please give a warm welcome to the founder and organizer of FE 2018 Canada, Robbie Davidson.
Wow, here we are again. I mean, this is exciting because I was able to bring the first Flat Earth International Conference to the USA last year in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it was exciting. The first ever, making history. But what's really special in these next 2 days is this is history for Canada. And what makes it really amazing for me is this is my home city. So it's very special to bring it to Edmonton, Alberta. It's amazing that so many people are looking at these two words, and it brings up so many incredible emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's despair, all these incredible emotions, and people are wondering what is going on. How in the world in 2018 can so many people be questioning something as simple as the Earth, or questioning mainstream science? And while it's exciting that so much is happening, and that people are truly searching for the truth, there's also a sadness, there's a painful aspect to what's happening, especially with this community. I've been involved for 3 years, and I can say that there's a lot of excitement, but it comes at a cost. And people have endured a lot of hardship. Many are suffering in silence. There's a lot of stuff going on that honestly, it's time, and I'm going to be the first one to really start seriously addressing it and saying, look, we're a community, we're asking questions, it's time to stop the ridicule. It's time to stop the name calling. It's time to stop the threats. And what makes this incredible for me today is I can talk about a lot of painful stories. And while I'm not going to be mentioning any names, the only names I'm going to be mentioning is me and my family. And while I have had an amazing success, I have been sitting on what my family has gone through in the last 3 years here in Edmonton, Alberta. And I knew there would be a right time and a place. I knew for me personally that God would let me know that this is the time. Because it couldn't be out of anger, and it couldn't at all, I couldn't make this personal. It had to be based on principle. So I want to share a bit of the journey of what me and my family have gone through. And I'm going to hold certain people to account. Not that I'm angry, it's just time to seriously address different abuses, different things that are happening. So while this is going to be a different message normally, it's important and it's the time. So I'm going to basically explain it to you all. When it came to this topic, Flat Earth, it was an incredible experience. In many of my interviews, I've explained the entire journey. But at the time, we were going to a church not very far from here, a few blocks, called Grace Life Church. It was a great church. We were there. We were seeing this as a great opportunity to raise our family. We had wonderful friends. We got even close with the pastor and his wife. And what made it so amazing was I could talk to this pastor, and he loved questioning things. Now, we never really got into this topic because I wasn't even there myself, but questioning the Federal Reserve or the monetary system, and he was kind of one of those guys. So I'm like, this is cool, because I've always been one of those type of people. So I felt safe. It felt good. So when I came to it, I started talking to him slowly, saying, wow, like, been looking into NASA and the moon landings. And it got to a point where he started bringing it up with his family. His children, like, that's a good point. I wonder if they let it on the moon or not, and different things. And what was really incredible was it was just going along with the flow. Nothing was out of the ordinary. We were carrying along. But then all of a sudden, things started arising. People started knowing that my YouTube channel, Celebrate Truth. People started talking. All of a sudden, we found out that there were individual Bible studies going on where the topic was being brought up, and some people were for it, some people were incredibly against it, and some people were trying to keep the neutral ground. Hey, let's keep peace here. Like, it can't be this bad. It was incredible. But to me, the most startling thing in my over 20 years of being a Christian, I had a call from the pastor one night, and he told me, I just want to let you know that it's going to come to a point, not now, but eventually, at some point, we are going to come to you, and we're going to give you an ultimatum. What's the ultimatum? It's either this church or your YouTube channel. I said, dude, are you kidding me? I was utterly shocked. That's an understatement. Of course, talking to my wife, it was a painful thing. We had got to know many, many people. We loved everything, and all of a sudden, we're held to an ultimatum. Even though the church was looking the literal interpretation of the Bible, 6-day literal creationists and all that, which was bizarre, because even while I was sitting there saying, show me from the Bible, where I'm wrong, they still couldn't. But it was interesting to me just how all of this started transpiring. So, obviously, talked over with my wife, and I said, listen, this is just a learning lesson. There's no way we're going to be in a church that tells me at some point we're going to be like, is it going to be next week? Is it going to be next year? When's it coming? It's coming, but when's it coming? We can't live like that. But I wasn't angry. I was like, it's a good learning lesson. It's sad, but let's find a church that at least, is safe. And I knew that I wanted to make sure that my family was in a safe environment. So under some recommendations, we found a church here in Edmonton as well, Fellowship Baptist. And what was really interesting that my wife read on their bylaws on the website was they had a clause in here, because in Grace Life Church, they got to a point where it was incredibly strict, incredibly restrictive. Whereas like, we need to give you permission to have a Bible study, or we need to know this, or we need to know that. So, okay, some people like that. I didn't. But I'm going to find a church that's a little bit more free. So on their website, it said religious liberty. We believe in religious liberty, that every man has the right to practice and propagate his beliefs. Sounds good. So I knew that my first meeting with Pastor Jason Hagen, it would be important to just lay it out. Say who I was, YouTube channel, review it, give me the good, the bad, the ugly. I just want to know. He was familiar with the channel, watched my documentaries. Everything was fine. Great. The second meeting, brought my wife. Wonderful meeting. We talked about it. Cool. We don't have to look over our back. Yeah, a lot of people at our church, while we might agree to disagree and stuff, it's not really essential to being a Christian, these different topics, especially when it came to the earth. I mean, what does it matter if it's round or flat, or you hear this all the time. And it's an important thing, because a lot of people will dismiss it as, what does it matter? Who cares? But you're going to find out really quickly that people really care about this topic. So I'm like, this is wonderful, great. So all of a sudden I said, well, listen. He said to me, he goes, I don't agree with it, right? I'm like, yeah. But he goes, it's all good. It's all good. I don't agree with a lot of people in my church, but we have like religious liberty. Awesome. I know your clause says, hey, you allow your personal beliefs to believe different things. As long as it's not a central doctrine, like, you don't believe in Jesus, well, how do you be a Christian at that point? Makes sense. So I'm like, okay, great. So we had a couple meetings, and we were kind of doing some Bible studies. And I'm like, yeah, show me. I'm going to show you what I'm getting from these Bible verses, and you show me. And well, into about 2 little studies with him, I realized that he didn't really take anything in the Bible literal. He looked at it as all allegory and poetry. And while there were people in the church that definitely believed it was literal, it was like anything goes. But it was all fine. Well, the third meeting was interesting, because when I arrived, it wasn't just him. There was another gentleman sitting there. And I'm like, oh, this is different. I didn't know there was going to be 2 of them. And of course, I sat down. Now, I'm not going to go into the entire discussion, but let me say it got incredibly heated. It went on for over an hour. But near the end of it, something kind of transpired. And it was like, okay, things are okay. There were 3 qualifications that they wanted, and we made an agreement. One was that I wouldn't just look down on people that don't believe in this like they're lesser than. And I said, am I doing that? Well, no. We're just saying we don't want you to do that. I'm like, okay, I agree. The second thing was, we don't want you to mix in the fact saying, you can't be a Christian without believing this. Yeah, I don't believe in that anyways. This is not salvational. I'll agree. The third one was, when you come out with a documentary, all we're asking is, can we just give you some suggestions? And again, their suggestions had nothing to do with the content. It was all like, maybe your language is a little strong there, saying all, or you know what I mean? I said, sure. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with it, but I'll let you, look at something that I'm going to release as my next documentary. Great, so we had an agreement. I was excited. Things were moving ahead. We were going to find somewhere that, while they didn't believe in it, they were cool because, a lot of people had their differences. So everything was great. Until one Sunday, we're there. A lady came up to my wife and said, yeah, I noticed, you're in the nursery, you're doing this and stuff. We need a lot of help in the nursery to help with the babies. My wife was just amazing with babies. Would you mind helping? So my wife came to me and said, what do you think? I said, that's a beautiful thing. Help out and, you're amazing with babies and stuff. Awesome. Let's do this. So the next week she came back and she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, what? I was told you're not allowed to help with the babies. At that point, I knew exactly what was coming. And I said to my wife, I want you to email Pastor Jason Hagen. And you say, why? Why would I refuse to help babies in a nursery? So, because I knew what was coming already. And this is maybe the most comical part of it. What's she going to do? Whisper to babies? The earth isn't a ball. They can't comprehend anything. What's the threat? It was ridiculous. But sure enough, exactly what it was. And we got a big worded letter back that basically your allegiance with your husband, we don't agree with it. You have no right. You're welcome to come, but you basically will never become a member. We will never give you any type of activities here and all of this. So, again, it was a really, really painful period. Number one, my wife's coming to me with tears in her eyes that she can't help with the babies in this church, while we were just at the point where okay, we found somewhere. So my big point on this is when people say this is no big deal, or people just laugh it off, it's not a laughing matter because people are hurting. There's people losing their jobs. There's people that are threatened. There are so many stories I could tell. And I'm not trying to have a downer here because, again, we're going to turn this thing right around. There is hope. And what's really exciting is we found a third church. And it was True Life Baptist Church. And the most amazing thing to me is while they don't agree, they're here today to learn. They have been supportive from day one. And that's all I'm asking for. I'm not saying I need everyone to believe the way I do. But again, this is the conversations we need to have with people. Is we can agree, we can disagree. Let's talk. Let's just talk. So to me, I want to say a big thanks to Pastor Jackson and his family for just, embracing us, but also being supportive and also being here and helping out and just wanting to kind of learn. And I know, for one, that, in their journeys and looking into this, he's already been saying, I'm pretty much certain we're geocentric now. So we're moving that direction. But even if he doesn't believe in it, the fact is that my family and I are safe because they realize on the scale of 1 to 3, how does that impact who we are as people? And, it's a beautiful thing, right? So again, anybody, that's here, whether you're a believer, whether you're a skeptic, whether you think this is a laughing joke, in the next 2 days, there's going to be something here for you. One thing that maybe makes you think a little bit different, question something. And again, that's all we're asking, is just ask those questions. Look into it a little bit more. You might be surprised at what you find. So it's an exciting time. Like I said, the first International Flat Earth Conference in Canada. We have a spectacular 2 days that are set. You're going to see some incredible presentations, amazing panels, some really amazing surprises, and it's just an incredible, incredible opportunity. And I'm so thankful, like I said, to have all of you here making history in Canada and being able to do this at Edmonton, Alberta. And while I'm sitting there saying that we've suffered pain in this city, there's going to be a lot of victory as well in the city, and I know that, and I'm excited about it as well. So I guess in closing, I just want to sit there and say that anybody that's listening to this, the bottom line is this. Don't blindly just trust somebody. Go do your own research. And before you dismiss something, start looking into it. And that's really the biggest message I would send to the media or anyone that's covering this. It's important. And you're going to get to a point where you can only laugh so long. Understand that you might be laughing at the expense of people. And again, this doesn't go on with any other community. Nobody would get away with this. So for me, I'm going to start standing up. I'm going to basically be holding different people and organizations, just like those two churches, I'm going to be holding them to account. And Fellowship Baptist, I want them to at least amend their bylaws saying, we believe in religious liberty and your right to practice anything except two. This was interesting. I said, if I give up flat earth, what about geocentrism? Nope. So let me get this straight. You can believe anything in this church except those two? They're like, yeah. So I'm saying to Fellowship Baptist, you change it where you can believe in anything here except geocentrism and flat earth. So that's my charge when it comes to this. And also, hopefully the media will get their response, why they are basically shoving people out of their churches over an issue that they don't even take the time to address. And what's discouraging to me is one of the pastors, even just 2 weeks ago, was up laughing about flat earth because supposedly he was down in the States and kind of met an astronaut, so he's got to put his cheap shots in. I'm just saying, come to the table. If you're so confident to sit on stage and laugh at us, and yet you want to address it biblically, this is where I'm at. But again, I'm a religious person. I'm a Christian. This community represents non-religious people as well. There are people that don't believe in the Bible or non-religious. I'm just countering my story. But there's people suffering not to do with the church, to do with many areas. Their jobs, their vocations, their family. And so many people are like, I haven't told my family yet. I'm worried. And it's time to start standing up and just say it. Just say it, whether or not. I mean, Rob Skiba, for one, for the longest time, was just going out and saying, I'm just looking into it. I'm not even a flat earther. And he was getting railed on. Maybe just start there. But that should tell you something. When you're saying, hey, I'm not. I just want to look into it. And you're still getting railed, something's going on. When people do not want you even questioning this, something is going on. So, like I said, we've got an amazing 2 days. It's exciting for me to bring all of this to you. It's going to be an enjoyable 2 days. And with that, I'm going to say that a really true good friend of mine I want to introduce. And he has done so much for Flat Earth. Not just behind the scenes, but also right in front. Whether he's on a boat on Lake Michigan with Rob Skiba, debunking meteorologists that are, what you're seeing here is a mirage. Or doing experiments with FEIC. Rick Hummer has done incredible things. And for me, I just want to say that he's intelligent, he's very funny, he's got a heart of gold. And welcome to FE 2018 Canada, your Master of Ceremonies, Rick Hummer.
Thanks, Robbie. Well, welcome, everybody. Hi, how are you? It's flat, eh? It's flat, eh? Should I stand behind the podium? I keep moving around. First of all, I just want to say, last year at the Raleigh conference, Rob Skiba mentioned a date and said this was the day that Mark Sargent ruined his life. All I can say is within 48 hours after that happened to Rob ruined mine. Thanks, man. Love you, mean it. But no, once I started looking into this, and I had to take it from a perspective of, I worked in the media, I did radio all over the United States, I traveled, lived in Norway shortly, just did a bunch of different things. It helped to be voted the best class clown when I graduated, to take this with a grain of salt and pretend it was sugar. Because really what happened was, at first I thought, what does this mean? I didn't laugh. Rob, did I laugh when you said it to me? Did I laugh? No. A lot of people laughed at it at first. I'd learned my lesson by looking at some of the things that I was told by the media that I worked in. Things that I had to actually repeat. And for anybody that has ever worked in radio, anybody worked in the media before, or radio or TV or anything like that? You get a news feed, don't you? The news feed isn't coming from your building. It's coming from somewhere else. That your company, your station, pays for that service. And you don't go off that page. Because there's a reason why they call it radio and television programming. There's a reason why they call it programming. It's the same reason that textbooks are picked by a curriculum director. They have school boards that vote. And I highly suggest any of you parents out there that have students or children in a public school, you better find out who that curriculum director is And you better pay attention to who the school board members are. And if I were you, I'd get them out of the schools. Because they're not learning the truth. And the sad thing is, a lot of the stuff that the kids are learning, they're learning it from other kids. So I'm not going to rag on public school completely, because there are some good ones out there, and there are people in the public school systems that are doing their job the best that they can. But literally, the dominoes are stacked up on them as well. And there are flat earthers in the public school system. But like Robbie said, if you open your mouth, you're done. You better find another job. So that kind of happened to me. I'm not going to go into that long spiel. If you want to know about that, there's a reason why I don't have a YouTube channel. For years, what I did was I was always after ratings. That's how I got my bonus checks. You want to shoot for being number one in the market. Go into that market, conquer it, become number one, get your bonus check, and look for the bigger market, look for the bigger paycheck, and go. And figure out a way to get in the minds of the people and know who your audience is, and go and go and go. Once again, it's programming. I didn't realize that I was programmed to go after that dream, go after that chase, that pride. And I think that's what the biggest hurdle is that most people have with flat earth in general, is pride. Because they don't want to admit that they've been programmed. So what is the real test? The real test is, do you have a love for the truth, no matter how salty it may be? Because it's easy to swallow cotton candy. It dissolves in your mouth. But pour a bunch of salt in your mouth and try and swallow it. It's tough. But one of the things I've also learned is, if you get cut, if you're telling the truth, say that your tongue is like a sword. And when you tell the truth, it cuts. Well, if you go and try and sugarcoat it, go and get an open wound and pour sugar in it. What's going to happen? Eventually, you're going to get an infection. It's going to rot, right? But if you pour salt on it, even though it hurts, it's going to help in the long run. So be the salt. Tell the truth. Chase it down. Make it happen. But use your gifts. Use what you've been given. Be kind to people. Be loving. Be nurturing. Because I can tell you this, none of you woke up to this by accident. There's no way. There's no way that everybody in here is here that doesn't know each other. And some of you that are together, look around the room. There's faces you may have never seen before, but there's a commonality and a common denominator. And that is, you're willing to learn. And that's God-given. Because it's real easy to stay in that programmed mind. It's real easy to stay in that comfortable pride that everything's cool, we got this, we know, I know. It's really hard to admit that you've been lied to or you've been duped. It really is. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to think, I was the butt of the joke. Awesome. Chalk it up. But what it really comes down to is, do I really want to know? Do I really want to know what the truth is? Do you guys? Yeah. Give yourselves a hand. It's truth. Yeah, clap. Because that's what it's really about. It's about literally looking at it for what it is and being able to accept it. And one of the things, Robbie touched base on this, with the church. I had it happen to me in the media. And it wasn't even flat earth. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what would have happened to me in 2004. I was, where's the McLean brothers? Where are they at? The Canadian boys. There they are. We were outside a little bit ago talking. And one of the things I said was, it's like, think about if you could go back in time, you as yourself. So here's Rick Hummer right now in Canada. And somebody says, hey, you got to go back 15 years ago and go find the old you. And you need to go tell the old you that you're going to be here right now at a Flat Earth conference. What would you say? And the 15-year ago you is looking at the now you going, that is me. Could you imagine what the 15-year ago you would be thinking, looking at the 15-year now you? How many of you would have ran and tried to hide so that the you from 15 years ahead wouldn't find you again? Because 15 years ago, I would not have even thought about entertaining this at all. No way. No way. I was just getting into some other things, Federal Reserve, some of the hijinks of let's just say the geopolitical chess game, the nonsense that goes on. I can tell you this, no one in Congress in the United States is ever going to be at my house for a backyard barbecue. I know this. I know that most people in Washington, D.C. are never going to know who I am. I know there's probably some that do, because I believe that there are certain people just in this room. The way that they've got the system set up, we can be monitored. They can do anything they want. So be it. But let it be known, there's a lot of people in this room that are not afraid of you. At all. Because we broke the programming. And we didn't do it on our own. I believe it's God-given. I truly believe it's God-given. I believe there's a movement by the Almighty, and His hand is all over this. Because things are being revealed in the last days. So if you think I'm crazy for saying that, you obviously haven't read some pages. And you haven't been on your knees asking and going straight to the source. Because that's how deep it goes. But at the same time, even though we're all here, and some of you may not understand some of this, some of you are just here to, like Robbie said, just to observe. Wonderful. But one thing that I can say is I'm going to lighten it up here a little bit. Me being the class clown growing up, a lot of the things that I used to do as a kid growing up, I had it pretty rough in certain aspects, from family life to some other things. And the way that I hid my pain was by making people laugh, because it shielded the pain. So for whatever reason, that resonated with me. And I was able to say, you know what? This is actually more fun making people laugh. And in programming, if you can actually make somebody laugh, they remember it. When an emotional string is plucked, basically what happens is, if you're in the middle of learning something, if it's something that really hurts, you're going to remember it. If it's something that makes you laugh and it's joyful, you're going to remember it. But which one's more fun to remember? The fun one or the painful one? What if you could take the painful and make it fun? So I started thinking about this, and Rob Skiba and I we were working on Seed together. Actually, I was helping him, because this guy is a maniac machine when it comes to this project. But I had this other character that I used to do years ago that I developed with a friend of mine to basically help out at a racetrack when things were slow. But I didn't want people to know it was me. So we came up with a character, and as it developed, it was there for a while, and then all of a sudden, Flat Earth came into the picture of my life. Thanks, Rob. And so I took this character, and I said, I can use this character to bring Flat Earth onto the scene to a whole group of people that may not ever entertain learning about the true identity of creation. So, with that being kind of a deep thing to say, I want to share something with you guys, because there are some people out there that think that I'm, they think that I'm just kind of here. But there's some things I've been working on pretty hardcore, and I've been getting help from a lot of the people that are in this room. And I thank them for that. And I am truly appreciative of that. So one of the things I learned is, if you have talent, and someone's been, not using their talent, I believe they're wasting it. Because I think we all have a gift. Just got to find it. So I want to share something with you on a project that I've been working on. And just so some of you know, I worked in LA for a long time. I used to do storyboards for some productions. I was in a couple movies that never made it to Blockbuster. Thank God. They weren't those kind of movies. They were great movies. They were funny. But what I can say is I've been working on something on my own time. I have a wife and 2 children. And by the way, I just want to say thank you to my lovely wife, Tabitha, for being patient with me and being patient with my friends and my brothers and sisters in this community, because with my phone rings, I try and answer it. And I try and get back to people. but I want to lighten the mood here for a minute, and I want to share something. The fries are up. I know that sound. But I want to share something with you. There's a project I've been working on, and how many of you have heard of a name, Rollin' Ready? Probably none of you. Good. Well, here you'll get to meet him. So let's go ahead. If we can run that, I want to share something with everybody, and I'll explain it real quick because I've only got 1:23 if this is done.
Ever heard of a stunt guy named Rollin' Ready? Of course not. But he's on a mission.
You're going to pay me $10 million to go to space? Inferno. Now that's how we do it. You have no idea how bad I want to run through that sprinkler right now. It's hot out here. You signed the contract. Worry about the stunt.
Hey, Neil, you got 25 seconds to talk to a redneck rocket scientist?
You're going to be fine. Quit worrying.
First of all, I know you're taking some heat on this whole flat earth thing.
Oh, you're going to love it. We're going to call the show Redneck Rocket Scientist.
Earth is round, and
Well, it's kind of a parachute. He knows more like a parachute.
yeah, but it's so round that if you looked at it,
Yeah.
you would not be able to know its pear-shape unless you physically measured it.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's a flat earth swimming up in the fall. Would you ever go crash something like that?
No, because it's a free country. People should think and believe what they want.
Exactly.
But the task is, if you think Earth is flat, you should not head a space agency. The explosions that do happen in space are nuclear, right? So that's a whole other thing.
Hey, I don't want to mess with that.
You don't want to mess with that.
So basically, Rollin' Ready is up for the biggest challenge of his life. And he has no clue.
All right. It's not done yet. Don't clap. You haven't seen the whole thing. I'm just kidding. So how many of you know the guy that was in there? Neil deGrasse Tyson. How many of you can't stand the guy? Stop right there. I'm going to tell you right now, he had no idea who I was. He happened to be doing a show in South Bend, Indiana. And I knew he was going to come in through the back door because I used to do radio in that town. I used to MC a lot of concerts. And so I knew that he was going to show up. I just happened to call that day and say, is there any way I can get an interview? They're like, no, he's not even going to get here till 5:30. Oh, okay. Called my buddy, get the camera. I got an idea. We're going to get this guy. So it was planned for us to meet up with Neil. But I flat out asked him, can we have a conversation with you for this production? Absolutely. I've only got a little bit of time. He heard it himself. And he did it. But what I can tell you is, I feel sorry for Neil deGrasse Tyson. I feel sorry for these guys that are locked into the programming, that are ignoring the science that's been tested and proven. It's not a ball. The formula they gave you, 8 inches times the mileage squared, does not work. It's observable. Test it. Observe. Test it. Observe. Collect the data. I don't know about you guys, man. When I start adding up numbers, I get tired of adding up the same numbers that don't work for a formula that we've been given as a programming device that when you realize it's not round at all. It's flat. Flat. Water's a natural level. Right? Is water a natural level? Okay. How many of you flew here? Anybody? Anybody fly here? Everybody drove? All right. Next time you're in a plane, look out. Try and see the curve. It's not there. But most importantly, do the tests. And one last thing, because I got to bring somebody up here that was crucial in everything that, flat Earth means to me. That just love the guy to pieces. But one of the things I will say is that when you run into somebody that has not heard of this or doesn't know, don't be mean to them. Be the salt. Just tell the truth. You can candy coat it if you want. As much as they want to ridicule and scoff and mock, there's a big movement in the United States. I don't know about here, but there's an anti-bullying thing that goes around, right? Have you heard of this? The bullies? The media is all about it. So why do they do it to us? Why? Why aren't these journalists actually going, hey, let's go on, hey, can we go on this test with you? Instead we get, I want to call it dung. from mainstream programming. How many of you watched the Mythbusters being busted? Because I can tell you, in my own market, where I'm from South Bend, Indiana. And there's a guy there, we all heard it. What you're seeing here is a mirage. What you're seeing here is a mirage. Mirage. Okay. Got an idea. Let's go take a boat across the water and keep Chicago in sight the whole time. Sooner or later, that mirage is going to have to figure out where reality is, right? Tested and proven. It's not a mirage. So now what? Balloons go up in the air. It's flat. Where's the media? Where's the outcry from the media? Trace the money. Trace the programming. It comes from the top. And the guy that's been used, the guy I truly believe that God Almighty has used to break the programming for so many, that put it in such a wonderful, tangible, almost edible source of information. You can take a bite out of it, chew it up, and swallow it, and guess what? It's not salty, it's not sweet, it's perfect. And the way that he put it was perfect. And I'm very thankful for this guy right here. And welcome to the stage, your first speaker, Mr. Mark Sargent.
Okay? This pickup? I'll do this just in case. Some months ago, a German television team contacted me because they had heard about my science challenge and had found a physicist at Georgetown University I could debate. They also wanted to make it as easy on the scientist as possible, so their idea was simple. They would record me on video, reading 5 quick science-based questions, and then send that recording over to Georgetown, and he would respond in kind. This is what I read on camera. 1, long-distance photography. The mainstream science formula for the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared. An easy comparison would be the falling rate of 32 feet per second per second. So 8 inches per mile per mile. 2 miles is 2 times 2 equals 4 times 8 inches, or 32. 3 miles is 3 times 3 equals 9 times 8, or 72, and so on. At 50 miles, the curvature is 50 times 50 times 8, coming in at over 1,600 feet of curvature. And yet, with HD cameras, we can pull boats back into frame that are well beyond visual range. Not only does the new technology clearly show that it's not a mirage, but the same objects can be viewed in infrared and can be targeted ship to ship by beam radar. Can science explain this? They had no answer. Number 2, vacuum versus gravity. The force of a vacuum is measured in units of torr, T-O-R-R. Even a low-level vacuum can overcome gravity here on the surface. In building molecule-free chambers for the manufacturing of electronics, a series of massive pumps are needed to create a 99% vacuum. That's -9 torr. And for the remaining 1%, horsepower isn't enough. It can only be achieved by a chemical leaching process. That being said, how is the -10 torr vacuum force of space not ripping off the atmosphere of this world? What is gravity? Oh, we're going to do both. Sorry about that. And remember that there are gases that already defy it, like helium, hydrogen, and fluorocarbons. Isn't it more logical to suggest that the atmosphere is being contained in an enclosed, pressurized system? They had no answer. Number 3, eclipse shadow. Mainstream science tells us that the moon is over 2,000 miles wide, and yet during the 2017 American eclipse, no offense, the moon's shadow was only 70 miles wide, a reduction of over 97%. This is what the equivalent of having a 6-foot man walking in front of a wall where his shadow is smaller than an action figure at only 2 inches. Where do we see this in our everyday lives? We've seen a shadow's actual size and some much larger. Where can we see small shadows? The flat earth community says that the moon is less than 50 miles wide, much closer and the same size as the sun. Isn't this explanation also possible? They had no answer. Number 4, moon temperature. Science has yet to address this relatively new discovery that the moon generates a cold light. We all know that in the daytime it is 90 degrees in the sunlight, 80 degrees in the shade, depending on conditions. I know I'm not going to do the Celsius conversion up here, sorry. However, at night, especially when the moon is high in the sky, we see the opposite. While it might be 50 degrees in the moonlight, it's warmer at 60 degrees in the moon's shade, sometimes showing temperature shifts of over 13 degrees Fahrenheit. In addition, under controlled experiment conditions, magnified moonlight is even colder still. Again, the opposite of sunlight. We can generate this with technology today using a cold laser. The question is, why is the moon giving off a cold laser light? They had no answer. Last but not least, the Van Allen belts. A simple yes or no question. Are the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? If yes, then how did Apollo 11 through 17 make round trips through these belts with only aluminum and plastic as shielding? No one died, no one got radiation poisoning, nobody even got cancer. I think there's still like 5 left. Radiation is only stopped by 2 metals, lead and gold. Both are very heavy and cannot be used in aerospace because of their weight. If the answer is no, the belts are not deadly, then explain the video currently on the NASA.gov website called Orion Trial by Fire, in which NASA clearly states that the belts are so dangerous they will not be testing manned capsules because they are unable to solve the radiation problem. Keep in mind, this is not an old video. It was created at the end of 2014. The scientist viewed my recording and folded like a card table. This piece was never aired. All that being said, my name is Mark Sargent, and I'm a flat earther. Flat Earth is my passion, it is my obsession, and it is now my life. I watched my very first Flat Earth video in the summer of 2014. Like many of you, I quietly laughed at it, and then I made a huge mistake. I casually thought I could debunk it. Then realized it wasn't so easy. I rolled up my sleeves and tried to shut it down for 9 months, and then I failed. Confused, irritated, and mildly depressed, I then published my very first Flat Earth video on February 10th, 2015, with my full name, address, and phone number, prepared for the ridicule that would inevitably follow. The video, called Flat Earth Clues, simply stated what I saw and prompted people to do their own research and ask questions. The phone rang almost immediately. A person on the other end of the phone said, "Tell me more." Then another call came, and another, and then the emails and the texts. I couldn't tell what the attraction was, but for whatever reason, it was resonating, so I kept generating content. Fast forward to this morning. I've done 80 videos dedicated to answering emails, 84 Flat Earth and Other Hot Potato shows with Patricia Steer, 159 weekly Strange World shows, over 1,200 Flat Earth videos in total. Since my phone number was very easy to find, I received calls for interviews, and I did everything I could to accommodate them, no matter who they were. I've talked to everyone from junior high newspapers to major networks, and I do my best to treat them all the same. I set my feet, keep my cool, and do whatever I can to plant the seed in their head. If they want to lay into me, I smile. If they give me an opening, I create momentum. I try to kill them with kindness, honey over vinegar. And if they give me enough time, my message will get into their head. Look into Flat Earth, do your own research, ask questions. And yes, seeds were planted. Every video that I made, every interview that I sat for was viewed by people who talked to other people, and eventually it circled back around. I honestly thought the first one was a fluke. I was in Atlanta, Georgia, sitting in the audience as Zen Garcia was engaged in a theological flat earth debate, because that's a thing now. We took a break for lunch, and I went over to the closest restaurant I could find, a sports bar in the same parking lot. The bartender, a woman in her late 20s, overheard us talking in the corner. She came over and asked me directly if we were into Flat Earth. I said yes, and she said, "High five." The next day I flew out from Atlanta. My carry-on was going through a second screening, and I was wearing a I Am Mark Sargent t-shirt. A young Homeland Security man pointed at my bag and then me. He then kept staring at my shirt and my eyes. Back and forth he did this until finally he asked quietly, "Yo, you Mark Sargent for reals?" I said yes. He winked at me, handed me my bag without opening it, and said, "That's my name too." He knew the Fight Club reference. We may not all be Mark Sargent, but we are all flat Earth. I was at a recent Salton Sea test in Southern California, and after an exhausting morning with skeptics, National Geographic, and a whole bunch of flat earthers, we met up at an organic cafe in Palm Springs. The cashier, who eventually figured out what we were doing at our tables, then showed us the anything but secret hand sign. You see, she was one of us. Despite what you may hear, we do have people everywhere. That same trip, I was out to dinner with a few people from the meetup. Patricia Steer received an invitation for drinks at the weekend home of a Hollywood icon. We went, along with Rob Skiba, and found out that the Flat Earth grapevine reached much further than publicly reported. When I got back to Whidbey Island, that's in Washington, by the way, if you guys didn't know, I walked past a construction crew. A young man was staring at me from a distance and then approached. He asked me if I was that guy from Flat Earth. Keep in mind, this is a rural island in the corner of the United States. That very evening, and I cannot make this up, my cousin called me from Manhattan. She was there in a wine bar with executives from one of the biggest Wall Street hedge funds in the world. One of them brought up Flat Earth. She mentioned my name, and not only did they know the clues, they insisted on sending me a picture of them next to a phone with an AE map on it. Only one other person in this room has seen that picture. My point, and I'm repeating myself for the documentary team who did not believe me, is that we have people everywhere. At first, I thought Flat Earth was like the Spice Girls, who, even though they sold 80 million albums, almost no one was willing to admit that they owned it. The truth about Flat Earth is that we're much bigger than the Spice Girls. Currently, the majority of our membership is in the closet. For every one of you here, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, with the same information and the same awakening. Think that's an exaggeration for the media that's here? A recent article inside Russia said that at least 3%, and these are the ones that admitted it, of Russians believe in the flat earth. If that lowball number is true, that's over 4 million people, 4 million flat earthers just in Russia. They stand quietly and watch from the outside, waiting for the moment when mainstream makes it something to talk about without ridicule. For the community members who are on the front lines, and there's a bunch of them here, taking the hits day after day, I salute all of you. Just look at the amazing work these people have done in just 3 years. D. Marble got on an airplane with a spirit level, and he made national news. His channel now grows every day. Nathan Thompson has the largest Flat Earth Facebook group in the country. Patricia Steer has put herself out there on camera doing over 250 Flat Earth and other hot potato shows. Globebusters averages over 1,000 live viewers in a hangout, something that many globalist YouTube channels would be envious of. Celebrate Truth, who I have heard is Canadian, is at 98,000 subscribers. Oh, and in his spare time, he organizes first-of-its-kind conventions like this. Jeranism has grown to over 113,000 subs. Rob Skiba is 145,000. Controversy 7, another Canadian, is at 151,000. ODD Reality is at 185,000. And there are many, many more. Too many, in fact, to mention here. Keep in mind that these aren't video game or makeup or food channels. Like Sparta, this is Flat Earth. All of these channels and this massive wall of content has affected almost everyone else in the social media. In the last year, the ripples from our members have spilled over into the YouTube titans. And they have responded. Some positive, some negative. But the exposure is priceless and the numbers staggering. Star Talk, one video, 2.3 million views. This morning in UK, one video, 2.8 million. Jimmy Kimmel, 3.7 million. Rich Ferguson, 4.4 million. Joe Rogan, 5 million. PewDiePie, The largest YouTube channel in the world did not one but two flat earth videos at 6 million hits each. Space Videos, which is a dedicated 24/7 science live stream, now has to put debunk flat earth in their title. And it does nothing but create more awareness for flat earth. Thank you for that. Niga Higa generated 15 million hits in one flat earth video in April of last year. And Shane Dawson generated 15 million flat earth hits, and he did it June of this year. I remember in the fall of 2015 and how cool it was that Forbes magazine even mentioned the words flat earth in an article. Now, if I don't see a news story every other day, I feel let down. That's how media spoiled we've become. In fact, it was one of these recent articles by U.gov, a British media research company, that got the attention of National Geographic. You see, they had polled over 8,200 Americans and asked them about the shape of the earth. And the number that stood out, the 18 to 24-year-olds. Over a third of them were skeptical of the official story that we lived in a spinning rock flying through empty, meaningless space. That study was the first wake-up call for science, who up until now has just dismissed the people involved because our numbers didn't present a threat. Now, at least some of them know differently. And for the rest of the scientific community, I come bearing a message. I like science. I always have. I flew here on the back of science, and I am speaking to you now on the fruits of its labor. Science, however, was never intended to be a religion, and that's what you've turned it into. You've turned it into scientism. You've taken the faith that people have in your lab coats and you turned it against them, pushing concepts and products onto the population which can be harmful or just simply untrue. You've taken what should have been simple observations and twisted them to suit your needs and make us feel small. We're not small, and we're not an accident. In fact, we are the new scientists, and we're heading straight for you. You don't want to defend yourself? Fine. Any ground you're not currently standing on? It's ours. We'll take the cities, we'll take the suburbs, we'll take the countryside. We've already been winning this war by attrition because you didn't think we were worth it. You want to call us a social media virus? Well, at least you got one thing right. We are infectious. We're currently the most interesting concept in the world. We're easy to understand, and we open minds. Oh, and one more thing. As you sit there in your offices, wringing your hands because you don't want to risk that vaulted education of yours, we've been running around your flanks at speed for the last 3 years. In closing, I'd like to circle back around. My name is Mark Sargent, and I'm a flat earther. Every day, I try to set an example for the community. I make content, I do interviews, I fly to meetups, I place stickers, I leave bookmarks. My car has a license plate that says it's flat. Even my gaming guild is named Flat Earth. When I'm awake, I'm trying to figure out new ways to plant the seed, and I absolutely will not stop until Flat Earth has changed this world for the better, because that's what we all deserve, a better world. Long live Flat Earth. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.